Ever wondered why you instinctively reach for, say, your coffee mug with one hand and not the other? Or why some people write with their left hand while most of us use our right?
Yeah, it seems so basic, but it's fascinating.
Is it just a quirk, or does it maybe hint at something, deeper about our brains, maybe our genes, or even stretching way back into our ancient history?
Right.
What if the answer actually starts way before you're even born, in the quiet world of the womb?
It's a compelling idea.
Get ready to unlock some surprising secrets behind one of the most fundamental, yet honestly overlooked aspects of being human: handedness. Welcome to a new Mag Talk from English Plus podcast.
Great to be diving into this.
Today, we're unraveling the fascinating enigma of handedness. You might think, oh, that's simple, but trust me, as we explore, you'll see it's a really profound organizing principle for our bodies and our brains.
Absolutely.
Our mission today is to cut through some of the noise, maybe debunk a few old myths, and give you a really comprehensive understanding of why we lean left or right.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's start with something super simple, totally relatable. Right now, just interlock your fingers. Go on.
Okay, done.
Which thumb ended up on top? For about, 90% of people listening, it's probably the right one. For the rest, it's the left. Now, this isn't random, is it? It's like a tiny window into this huge mystery.
Exactly, a little clue.
So why aren't we all ambidextrous? Or, why isn't it a neat 50-50 split like, say, eye color sometimes seems to be? What do you think's going on there?
Well, it's a remarkable consistency, isn't it? That 9-to-1 ratio, right-handers to left-handers, it's actually incredibly consistent across, all human cultures we know of.
Wow, all cultures.
Yeah. And what's truly astonishing is that it seems to have been this way for at least 500,000 years.
500,000 years. How do we even know that?
We see evidence, believe it or not, in ancient stone tools, how they were made, how they were held, and even things like wear patterns on the teeth of our distant ancestors. It's deeply, deeply ancient.
That's incredible. So as you touch on the answer to why isn't simple at all.
Not in the slightest. It's a really complex interplay. You've got genetics, you've got development in the womb, and maybe even a little bit of pure chance thrown in. Okay,
so let's dive deeper then. The first crucial piece of this puzzle seems to be our brain itself.
Right, the control center.
Our brain isn't just, a uniform blob up there. It's distinctly split into two halves, two hemispheres left and right.
Connected by the corpus callosum.
Exactly. And they're constantly talking to each other via that massive bundle of nerve fibers. But here's the kicker. These two halves, they aren't mirror images, are they? They're specialists.
Precisely. That specialization is what we call brain lateralization. They have different jobs, broadly speaking.
And this is where it gets really interesting for handedness, right? The crossover.
Yes. The crossover plan is fascinating. Basically, your left hemisphere controls the right side of your body, and your right hemisphere pilots the left side.
So if I'm writing with my right hand, that's my left brain doing the work.
Exactly. And if you're a left-hander, your right hemisphere is running the show for that fine motor control.
Okay, so that raises a really important question then, doesn't it? Given this setup, why is it overwhelmingly the left hemisphere that takes charge of motor control for most people? Why not the right, or why not a 50-50 split?
That is the million-dollar question. And the leading hypothesis, the one with the most traction right now, suggests this left hemisphere preference for motor control is likely a kind of byproduct of how language developed.
Language? How does language tie into which hand you use?
Well, think about it. For over 95% of right-handers, the main language centers, Broca's area for speaking, Wernicke's area for understanding, they're also located in the left hemisphere.
Ah, okay, I see. So language and dominant hand control are often on the same side.
Exactly. And if we think about the bigger picture, it points towards, efficiency.
Efficiency.
Yeah, imagine the brain as like a busy company headquarters, right? It just makes sense to put, say, marketing, which is like language, and graphic design, which is like our fine motor skills for using tools precisely. Put them on the same floor. Makes communication faster, more effective.
That's a great analogy. So our right-handedness, for most people, might be the brain's ancient decision to cluster language and tool use together in the left hemisphere.
That's the prevailing idea. It streamlined things as we evolved more complex skills.
Okay, so if the left brain is the linguist and the engineer, then what's the right brain primarily busy with? It can't just be sitting there.
Oh, absolutely not. The right brain is often seen as the artist and the navigator. It really excels at things like visual spatial processing.
It's like finding your way around.
Exactly, recognizing faces, interpreting emotions in others, and it plays a huge role in musical ability, too. It's handling a whole different but equally important set of tasks.
Right, and that distinction, that specialization, that's what led to that popular idea, maybe a bit too simple, of the logical left brain versus the creative right brain.
Yeah, the pop psychology version. It's an oversimplification, definitely.
But is there any truth to it? Especially when we look at left-handers. You hear stereotypes about lefties being more artistic.
Well, it's an interesting point to unpack. Statistically, left-handers are found slightly more often in professions like architecture, music, and the visual arts.
Oh, really? So there is something there.
Well, maybe. But the direct evidence linking left-handedness itself to inherent creativity is, let's say, tentative. Creativity is really a whole brain process. It doesn't just live on one side. However, there's a compelling sort of side theory. Some researchers speculate that maybe living as a lefty in a world designed for right-handers forces the brain to constantly adapt, to make more novel connections, maybe find different ways of doing things.
Because the world isn't set up for them.
Exactly. Yeah. So that constant navigation, that problem solving, might actually foster a certain kind of creative thinking or ingenuity. It's less about their brain being fundamentally built differently for art and more about perhaps the adaptive gymnastics they have to perform daily.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. It adds this whole other layer. Okay, so we've got brain lateralization setting the stage, but what about the script itself?
Yeah.
Genetics must play a big role, right? You often hear that handedness runs in families.
Oh, it absolutely does. That's quite clear. For instance, if both your parents are left-handed, your chance of being a lefty yourself jumps up pretty significantly to around 25%.
Okay, so that's definitely a genetic link.
For sure, there's a genetic influence, but, and this is where it gets really fascinating, the inheritance patterns are messy. It's not straightforward Mendelian genetics, which tells us there isn't one single left-handed gene.
So it's not like brown eyes versus blue eyes.
Not at all. Even identical twins who share 100% of their DNA don't always have the same handedness. One can be righty, the other lefty.
Wow. So genetics isn't the whole story, even within a family.
Exactly. Modern genetics is showing us it's what we call polygenic.
Polygenic, meaning?
Meaning it's influenced by dozens of genes, probably, each having just a tiny small effect on its own. And interestingly, many of these genes seem to be involved in really early body asymmetry, setting up left-right differences, and things like the cellular scaffolding, the microtubules in the developing embryo.
So it's happening at a really fundamental level early on.
Very early. And it's less like a direct command, be left-handed. It's more like a subtle genetic nudge or push, like getting lottery tickets where some numbers are slightly more likely, but it's definitely not a guaranteed win.
A lottery with weighted pickets, I like that. A genetic nudge, not a blueprint. But then, you mentioned development. What if this preference starts even earlier than we thought? Even before the brain's motor connections are fully, wired up. I heard about some groundbreaking research on this.
Yes, it's really quite astonishing stuff. Using high-resolution ultrasound, researchers have actually observed fetuses showing a preference for moving one arm over the other as early as 8 weeks gestation.
8 weeks? The brain isn't even fully formed then.
Barely. And even more remarkably, by around 13 weeks, many fetuses show a distinct preference for sucking one thumb over the other.
And does that stick?
Amazingly, yes. That thumb-sucking preference at 13 weeks is a very accurate predictor of their handedness after they're born.
Wow. So what does that imply then if the brain's motor cortex isn't fully connected yet?
Well, it strongly suggests that the preference is somehow established at a more fundamental level before the brain's higher motor control centers are really plugged in and driving the show.
So where could it be coming from?
The leading theory now points towards the spinal cord itself.
The spinal cord, not the brain.
Initially, yes. The idea is that those genetic factors we talked about create a very slight, maybe almost imperceptible asymmetry in the spinal cord during early development. This might make the nerves controlling movement on one side just a tiny bit more efficient or faster.
Okay.
Then, the brain, as it matures and its connections reach down to the spinal cord, it simply plugs into and reinforces this pre-existing bias. It latches onto the side that's already got a slight advantage.
So the brain doesn't create the preference, it just sort of confirms and strengthens the one that's already started in the spine.
That seems to be the current thinking. It reinforces what's already subtly there.
That completely flips the script on how I thought about it.
Okay.
So biology, genetics, spinal cord development. These are huge pieces. But it turns out that's still not the whole story, is it?
No, there's one final piece of the puzzle, and it's one you might not immediately think of. Culture.
Culture. How does culture affect which hand you favor?
Well, historically, it's had a huge impact, often a negative one. For most of human history, in many societies, there's been a powerful, sometimes really deep-seated bias against left-handedness, a stigma.
Stigma, yeah.
Absolutely. You can even see it embedded in language. Think about the word left. In Latin, it's sinister.
Sinister. Wow, I never made that connection.
Right, and that gave us our English word for evil or threatening. In French, the word gauche means both left and awkward or clumsy.
Okay, not very positive associations.
Not at all. And on the flip side, think about right. In Latin, dexter means right, and it gave us words like dexterity, meaning skillful. Right has long been associated with correctness, skill, goodness.
So language itself reflects this ancient bias.
Clearly. And this prejudice wasn't just words. It had very real-world consequences, especially, say, in the 20th century in Western cultures.
Right, I've heard stories in schools that used to force left-handed kids to use their right hand.
Yes, it was sadly common practice, sometimes quite harshly tying the left hand behind the back, wrapping knuckles with a ruler, things like that, to force them to write with their right hand.
It sounds awful. What effect did that have?
Well, apart from being unpleasant, it often led to practical problems like smudged ink, because they were pushing the pen instead of pulling.
Yeah.
Poor penmanship, frustration, and sometimes, quite surprisingly, it was even linked to speech impediments, like stuttering.
Stuttering? Why stuttering?
Because it was essentially forcing the brain to work against its natural wiring, potentially interfering with the coordinated processes involving language and motor control, which we know are often linked in that left hemisphere.
Wow. So that pressure really messed things up.
It really could. And what's quite telling is that if you look at population data, the percentage of reported left-handers actually increases in generations where that kind of social and educational pressure is relaxed.
Meaning the pressure was suppressing the numbers.
Exactly. It suggests the true biological rate of left-handedness might actually be slightly higher than the 10% or so we typically observe today. Maybe 12, 13%. We don't know for sure.
Okay, so active persecution has thankfully faded in most places. But even today, left-handers still live in a world that's fundamentally designed by and for the right-handed majority, don't they?
They absolutely do. It's something right-handers rarely even notice, but think about it for a moment.
Like what?
Well, scissors are the classic example. Most are designed for the right hand. Spiral notebooks, where the spiral gets in the way if you're writing left-handed.
Oh yeah, totally.
Can openers, the old-fashioned kind, credit card swipers in stores, the gear stick in most cars, the number pad on a keyboard, even those little flip-up desks in lecture halls.
Wow. It's everywhere when you start looking.
It really is. They're almost all configured for right-hand use, so left-handers are constantly forced to adapt.
So they probably become more ambidextrous just out of necessity.
Exactly. They often have to develop skill with their non-dominant hand for certain tasks, much more so than right-handers do. It's like they're performing this sort of constant low-level mental translation just to interact with everyday objects smoothly. So if we try to tie all this together, connect it to the bigger picture, the answer to that simple question, why are you right-handed or left-handed, it's really this whole cascade of influences, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. Not simple at all.
It seems to start way back, with genes creating these subtle asymmetries, perhaps in the spinal cord, even in the womb, sort of predisposing a hand preference. The nudge, exactly, that gets picked up and reinforced by your brain's specialized lateralized structure, linking your dominant hand, usually to its language centers for that processing efficiency we talked about.
Right. Biology builds on itself.
And then finally, layered on top of all that, is your cultural world, the society you grow up in, which either supports that natural tendency or certainly historically might have actively tried to suppress it.
Genes, brain, culture, it's the whole package.
It really is. And maybe this raises an important question for you listening to ponder. In what other ways, maybe subtle ways we don't even notice, might our biology and our culture be interacting constantly to shape who we become?
That's a great thought to leave people with. Always more layers to peel back. And this is another Mag Talk from English Plus Podcast. Don't forget to check out the full article on our website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com, for more details, including the Focus on Language section and the Activity section. Thank you for listening. Stay curious and never stop learning. We'll see you in the next episode.